Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'd like to take a look at the Many Samurotts of GLC. So what is GLC before we get into things? It's a single prize only, no rulebox format. It is singleton, except for basic energy, and you're only allowed one type per deck, which is usually not too relevant for most Pokemon in GLC, but there's a few instances, like with Tyranitar and with one Samurott that we'll look at here today, is that sometimes this does crop up where it's a bit awkward because you don't have like a dark type Dewott or like Oshawott. So yeah, things can get a bit annoying, but hopefully in the future Pokemon will release a set which just has like a bunch of Pokemon with unique typings to what they currently are. But just one common problem you might run into while building a GLC deck. But yeah, these are some of the basics. Now, I've singled out these two as being maybe the best Oshawott to have access to. Like, I don't think there's too much of a difference here, aside from the fact that Water Gun does 10 more damage than the other ones. So, like, yeah, I would suppose that's marginally better. And then as for the Dewatts, nothing crazy, but like Energy Shell could be decent, I guess. One coming up from White Flare. So, like, maybe that's alright overall, but like Razor Shell's honestly not that bad either, especially if you want to go for level ball in your deck. But really, nothing too crazy from the basics or pre-evolutions. But the first Samurott that we can take a look at here is indeed one from the Black and White era. Now, sadly, I think this card has just been like power crept out of GLC. There's just far superior options in pretty much every department, which is a wee bit of a shame just because the artwork's really nice on a lot of these. But yeah, it has that ability Shell Armor, which says this Pokemon will take 20 less damage from attacks, which is absolutely fine. And then Hydro Pump does 70 damage, and then 10 more damage for each Water Energy attaches Pokemon. So yeah, sadly, Pokemon that we'll look at later on this video just have better attacks, better abilities, but at least it's not the worst thing in the world. There's just not really much of a reason to play this one when better options exist, so bit of a shame, hard to recommend it, but again, some nice artworks overall. Next up is we have one from the same set, actually Black and White. Now this one's a bit more interesting, I think, because it's a spread attacker. Now, granted, it's only doing 30 damage, and then 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, so the spread damage really isn't there. And to be honest, it's almost at the point where even if you're playing like a spread type water type deck, you may as well just play a different Samurott because like the damage just is so low. And without things like double colorless and 2 energy, it's really hard to defend like 2 colors in the attack cost anymore. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. Like it has some synergy across the board, like Frostlass and Dewgong, of course, but overall, I wouldn't say this card is winning any awards for being great or anything, and Surf is definitely not helping the case. Like 80 damage for 3 energy is rough. So yeah, I don't think Samurott is particularly great. Like Dewgong over here with Aura Beam doing 100 for 3 energy, not 80. So yeah, it's a bit rough really for this one. Next up though is we have a one that is almost equally as bad and terrible and boring, but Destructive Whirlpool at least does discard an energy, and that's guaranteed. However, it is for 4 energy, so like even if this was for 3, and then you could use like triple acceleration energy and you could do 80 damage and guarantee discard energy, I still don't think this card would be very good. So the fact that it takes 4 energy is definitely a bit rough. So hopefully this will be like the last bad one that we have to take a look at here today. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but definitely not a very good one. Next up though is we have a one that is infinitely more interesting. This one has the attack Ultimate Blade, which does 40 damage. And if the damage from this attack, which is a crucial wording, so it has to be the damage from this attack, reduces your opponent's active Pokemon HP to 60 or less, that Pokemon is knocked out. Which is honestly a really super interesting attack that you really don't see many iterations of, like many versions of, I should say, in the TCG. So you could use other attackers like Golduck or this Veluza, for example, to like cheaply or like more efficiently like shrink your opponent's active Pokemon down to low HP and then like finish them off with an Ultimate Blade. So that's like a fun option or like a fun challenge you can try and do, which is cool. And then Pike does 90 damage for 3 energy and then 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So I just think this one's a bit better than the other one that did Pike. So, you've got nice spread options. It can maybe set up Ultimate Blade, but like typically it's just there to, in case Ultimate Blade won't bring down a Pokemon, you just want to do 90 and then 30 spread. So overall, a pretty interesting Samurott, I would say. I'm going to definitely be up for giving this one a go at some point. But yeah, pretty interesting. Next up is we have a one that's basically like, this is what I was talking about the first one being kind of just power crept out of GLC, because this one's Shell Armor takes 30 less damage from attacks. So not 20 less anymore, it's 30 less. And then Aqua Wash does 120, and you may put 2 energy cards attached to your opponent's active Pokemon into their hand. Now, sadly, again, there's no double colors or twin energy, so you won't be able to like cheat this attack cost out in any way, shape, or form, aside from like Crispin and well, I guess things like Blastoise and Frostmoth and Max Caliber and stuff. But like, there's no like easy energy just attaching. You will have to use supporters or abilities. But you can also like build around the fact that it's relatively tanky, like 160 HP. You take 30 less, you can take another 20 less from Lake Cutie, then like another 30 less from Pot Helmet, which is quite nice. So like there is maybe a world where you try and build a tanky, maybe not stallish, but quite a tanky disruptive water type deck. And then this Samurott could like have a home in that. So honestly, not a bad card, I would say, overall for GLC. Like it's nothing crazy or like jaw dropping or anything, but definitely not the worst option out there in the world. So definitely a cool card, I would say. Next up is we have a super interesting one, which is sadly really hindered by the fact that there's no Dark type Duwat or Oshawott. But this Dark type Hisuian Samurott does have 170 HP and the ability Wily Stance. You must discard a card from your hand in order to use this ability, then you can draw 3 cards. So it's essentially just a buffed up version of Trade from Zorak, which is really nice. And then Dark Mastery for a Dark double colorless, which again is really awkward without double colorless energy, but does 60 damage and then 20 more for each energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So you will have to get some good energy acceleration, like maybe Hydreigon involved, or like Beast Ring in the mid to late game, like Dark Patch perhaps, that kind of thing. But it is a lot of effort to get going, so you might just be here for the draw engine mainly, but it's a very powerful draw engine. I just don't think it's quite worth it, even with Dream Ball and Peonia, and that's why you don't see this card like splashed into Dark type decks. Like it's still a bit too much work to get going. But I think overall, like it's definitely a fine card. And if you really, really like Hisuian Samurott, then at least there's a way to play it, and it's not like a complete piece of garbage, basically. I also really like Hisuian Samurott's design. I think it's really cool. Like the dark black and the red contrasting is really nice. But yeah, overall, sadly, not a very playable card in GLC. It's just a wee bit awkward to get out and going. Next up, though, is we have one from the more recent set, White Flare. Now, this one has the ability Raging Rapids, which says, once in your turn, you may switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Then your opponent switches their active with one of their benched. So it's really nice. It's just a guaranteed switch every time you want it. However, your opponent will have to retreat. So, like, your opponent does have to do it, so they don't get the choice. But at the same time, you might not always want to, like, force your opponent to switch out. Like, there are instances definitely where you want them to bring up another Pokemon. But sometimes, more often than not, you'd rather just attack into what they have in the active spot. So, like, I think the ability is really cool, but it does have some limitations. Like, if you have a boss's orders in hand, then, like, of course, there's no trouble here, or, like, Guzma or something like that. There's not going to be any problems whatsoever, but overall, I think there is definitely some instances where the ability is less than desirable in a sense, but yeah, maybe not like the most, maybe not the most practical ability all the time, but still very useful. And then Energy Slash does 30 base and then 50 more damage for each energy attached to this Pokemon. It doesn't specify water energy, which is really nice, so you could lose like reverse energy if you really wanted to. But like typically you just want to use things like Baxcalibur, but if you don't want to use Baxcalibur or Blastoise because they're stage 2 Pokemon, you could always just use things like Frostmoth to maybe get the energy on there. So yeah, seems like a very solid attacker overall. You only need 2 energy to be doing, 130? So you need 3 to do 180, which I suppose isn't that bad really in GLC. Like, I suppose like the main appeal as well is that you can just keep stacking energy on to do those massive 1-hit KOs if you really need it to. But like overall, the ability is very nice for utility. So yeah, I would still maybe say that this one's actually the most playable out of all of them, funnily enough, just because I think you can really lean into the tanky aspect with other things like Cloyster and stuff from 151. But like this one, I would say is the best. This one's like maybe close second, and this one's like not awful actually, but yeah, maybe I'm like underrating this one a bit. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, thank you for watching. I do a new set review for GLC with each new release, so do subscribe if you're interested in being updated. This is a series to stay, of course, so let me know which Pokemon you would like to see in the future. There is a short list, we're going through them, and a playlist has been made. And if you want to dive into the competitive side, Omnipoke and the format creator Tricky Jim have both done fantastic videos and guides for each type. But yeah, will you be adding Samurott to your GLC deck, or do you feel inspired to try out GLC? But yeah, it's been Ember Power. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.